Hello and welcome to another edition of Formula for Success Weekly webinar. And today, like every other, going to be packed with a very, very important message. And as you can see, like from the promotion, the title of the webinar, the three, and the 5 keys to prevent your death from cancer. It's a really, really serious topic, as we all know, and I see so many of you actually, and that's, you're taking an interest in your health, but also the interest of your family and your loved ones and so on, because this is what you can do with this information. It's not just for you, but it's also for everyone else. You can share it with them, and that's important that you do take that message and share it with other people. And we have none other expert. Dr. Marilyn Joyce is just one of the most inspirational people I've ever met, and I was hooked once I heard her speak about 14, 15 years ago. I had her own personal story of surviving cancer 5 times, which she's going to share with you to see, so I'm not going to say much about it, but she's a true inspiration. She's dedicated her life since surviving cancer to helping people prevent it, helping people who have it, helping people after it, helping people who are caregivers. And she's just so passionate and such a giving person, and you're in for a real treat, and this is going to be an unbelievable webinar. So make sure you take plenty of notes, make sure you pay close attention, close down everything you've got on, Skype's, emails, Facebooks, everything. Listen and listen actively, and also ask plenty of questions, because we will have a Q&A section after Marilyn's done her main presentation. So keep throwing in the questions as you get them, so you don't forget them. So I just want to welcome Dr. Marilyn Joyce to the call. Dr. Marilyn, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. Hi, Dave. Hi, Dave. Great to be here with you.
And great to have you on again. You've always been one of our star guests. People always love to. This evening's going to be no different. So I'm just going to make you presenter. Here. Okay, so you're just going to get a message now to show your screen. Okay. Let's see, it's just gone black there. Oh, there we are. Perfect. Okay, Marilyn, so over to you. And again, looking forward to this again myself and everyone. As I said, take plenty of notes, ask plenty of questions, and really enjoy this.
Well, thank you so much, Dave, for having me on this webinar. I am thrilled to be able to present something that is very near and dear to my heart, and that is the 5 keys to preventing your death from cancer. If we don't take control of our body and our life, it'll take control of us. So it's really, that's what today is all about. Oops. Trying to get this thing to move here. There we go. Okay, so let's all just kick cancer in the can now, right? This is really what it's about. It's about learning what's going on and what we can do to move through it and take precautions. I really believe in prevention as being the key, and the issue that we have oftentimes is that people get sick before they take any action to get well, before they take any healthful actions, I guess is the best way to put it. So I'm not getting this to move for some reason. There it is. Hopefully that was okay. So, but more important than just, preventing illness and surviving is that we want to thrive. It's our God-given right not just to survive in this world, but to actually thrive. And what I learned many years ago and then forgot, went through my own journey with cancer and then relearned, was that there are 5 essential keys to creating a vital, new, healthy you. And they're at our fingertips at all times, but most of us don't do them, and I'll get into more of that. But before we do get right into the webinar, I want to alert you to a special gift. Actually, it's a couple of gifts, and a very special interview series that will be announced later on in the webinar. And it's something that will the gifts are something that will jumpstart your journey to your best health ever ASAP, and you're going to want to know about this interview series. Sound good? Great. But before we get into the content, is it okay with you if I share a little of my own journey with cancer? And you'll notice that I don't say my cancer because I'm not going to own it. And I'm going to just throw that out there as a little tip right now. If you're dealing with cancer right now, It is not your cancer. It is just an invader in your body. Your body is your body. The cancer is just an invader. It's not yours. You don't want to own it. So just let it go. I just really needed to state that. For some reason or other, that came up for me, probably because in my work with my clients over the last week, several of them used that term, and I had to correct them. So anyway, moving on. As some of you have already heard a lot of my journey, but I'm going to share it anyway for those who have not heard it, because it was quite a significant turning point in my own life, and as cancer is for anyone who goes through it, whether you go through it as the patient, whether you go through it as a survivor who now wants to embrace what I call thrivership, or you're the caregiver. And for me, I'm all of those. I've been through all those journeys. But I started out as a caregiver. Basically, I was caregiving people with renal disease and diabetes. And those were the two specialties that I was focused on when I got out of school, many years ago now. And from there, I had two children that I was supporting, and I was offered a job as an administrative dietitian. And I'm more of a hands-on, person-to-person kind of person. And for me, I ended up working in a job I absolutely hated as an administrative dietitian. And there was a lot of income to be made in that world versus as a clinical dietitian. So I preface this whole story with that because I want you to understand that I went from doing things I loved to doing something I absolutely hated every day. Have you ever been there where you wake up in the morning and you think, oh God, I got to go to work. I got to go and do that job. And even though I created my own business and I was very successful because I'm, a type A personality, I make things work. At the same time, I found myself just feeling like I was on a downward spiral every day, just trying to get out of bed and go through the day. And then I got the lift of my life. I was invited to speak for the Dietetic Association, which is my administrative body, for everything to do with dietitians. And it was quite an honor. It was a keynote presentation, and I was getting really excited about presenting how to create your own very successful business to my peers. But as I was preparing for this event, and the travel to it and all the rest of it, I looked in the mirror one day and I saw this, spot on my face under my eye, and it was black and purple and shiny and hard and crusty, and I'd had a spot there forever that was just kind of like a soft bubble of a blue spot from when I got hit in the face with a baseball when I was a kid at about 12 years of age. But here I was with this horrible looking spot on my face, and quite frankly, I really was stunned. I didn't know what to make of it. I mean, I wasn't really scared of it. I was just stunned because I had no clue about anything to do with skin cancer. The work I was doing in administrative dietetics was, it didn't lend to me seeing this kind of thing on a regular basis. I saw more of the, the cancers that people developed as they got older. Uterine cancer, ovarian cancer, breast cancer, prostate cancer, lung cancer. Those were the things I saw most. And so when I saw this thing on my face, I just went to the doctor and I said, you got to get this off of my face like pronto. I've got a big event coming up and I don't want this thing on my face. Now, you have to understand, like most moms and dads, when you're raising kids and you're working full time and you've got a really heavy set of commitments, you're not looking in the mirror every day at your face. At least I wasn't. I would slap on a little bit of mascara and off I went for my day. But this particular day, like I said, I saw this spot, went to the doctor, and he said, we better check this. This looks pretty serious. I didn't know what that meant, but I was soon to find out. I was actually diagnosed with melanoma. I had the wind knocked out of me when the doctor told me that this was a form of cancer. I mean, I was only 35 years old. How could this happen to me? I didn't eat perfectly, but I ate better than most people I knew. I was pretty conscientious about it. I mean, I will grant you that when you're eating in hospital cafeterias, your meals there aren't necessarily so good, and even today they're not the best. Even with the knowledge that we have, the hospital cafeteria food is still lacking, as are our children's school lunches. You know, it's like, I won't go into that right now, but there's a lot of problems out there with what we're serving each other and what we're serving in restaurants and schools and hospitals. We need to be mentors, and we're not. The point is, I was eating a lot of my meals in the hospital cafeterias because I was working at an administrative job that was not 9 to 5. It would be whenever I got there in the morning, which was early at the crack of dawn, until late at night. So I was not eating as well as I thought. But remember, I also said I hated the job I was doing. And what happens when you hate something and you keep doing it? You create a tremendous amount of stress in your body, which is what I was apparently doing, creating this amazing stress in my body, and didn't realize it. And of course, as you create stress, you know, there's a lot of problems that occur from that, which are, you know, it leads to major illness eventually. Basically, that's what happens. So lipid peroxides, you know, all through your body. Anyway, long and short of it was that I found myself really feeling overwhelmed, angry, depressed, feeling, how could this happen to me? But the doctor assured me it's early stage, great. Go in, get it handled, go into the hospital, get it handled, come out of the hospital, and within a week and a half I was rushed into hospital and went through tests because of ongoing pain that I'd had for years, in fact for more than 2 years. But they had ignored it. It was in my abdominal area, and it was just, I was told it was PMS and get over it. Well, it was stage 4 uterine cancer. And you could have definitely knocked me over with a feather at that point, because 2 of my great aunts had been diagnosed with stage 4 uterine cancer and were gone within months. Basically, the doctor was giving me a death sentence, and I didn't know what to do about it. I just was overwhelmed and angry beyond words. What occurred, though, was that I opted for chemotherapy. That was what they offered me. Probably different treatments today, but that's what I was offered then. So I went in for chemotherapy, and I went through 3 rounds of chemotherapy, and I found myself so ill. I spent so much time talking to the great white telephone in the bathroom, if you get my drift, that I finally sat down with my kids, talked about what the next step was going to be, and we all agreed that it was better for me to at least try to get some quality of life if I was going to be leaving the planet anyway. So I opted out of further chemotherapy. Now, I don't tell people to do that. My clients have to make their own decisions about all of this, but for me, I knew that if I continued, I was on a really fast spiral downwards, and recovery didn't seem very possible. And you know, I've heard many times since, and I've used it myself, that you can cut, burn, and poison the tumors, but if you don't change the underlying condition, it'll just return. And so in that process of understanding that I had to do something, I did what every other good cancer patient does. I started looking for all of the alternative therapies that were available out there, and there was no stone left unturned. I was looking for the magic bullet, just like every one of my clients. And back then we didn't have computers and internet and all that stuff. It was like off to the library and research, and nothing was digital, so it was all on those index cards and whatever the system was, the Dewey, whatever it was, decimal system. I don't even remember what it was called back then. But whatever it was in the libraries, that's what I was looking at. And I went through a lot of traveling to different places where I searched for the cures. You know, I tried 714X, which is an elixir that you basically inject into your body, into your veins. I tried SEACT, which actually worked really well for a while. I tried every supplement anybody mentioned. I read every book anybody sent me. I went to the library and explored every journal I could possibly find. And, you know, I just kept falling deeper and deeper into the hole. I went in and out of this journey 5 times. And in 1989, I found myself 88 pounds in a wheelchair, and I was given about a week and a half to 2 weeks and told to go home and take care of my affairs. I was in a lot of pain. I didn't have what you call hope anymore. I had tried everything I thought that there was to try, and I was ready to pack it all in. Gosh, I'm getting emotional here. I haven't done that in a while. And at that moment, the miracle weekend began. At my lowest point, the dark night of the soul. And I was dragged off to a home show. You know, that's the place where you buy all those things for your future home. And I didn't have a future home in my mind. But there I was in this noisy racket of a place. And as we wheeled in, we heard this noisy contraption going off. And it was a Vitamix machine. And there was this really handsome young man, Jim the Vitamix man. That's all I remember about his name. And he offered me some of his concoctions, and I refused them because at that point I had gone months not being able to hold down any solid food and not being able to drink any liquids, only suck on ice chips. And I was wasting away, to be quite honest. That's why I was in a wheelchair, couldn't walk. And he asked me if I had cancer, and he was one of the few who asked me that question. Most people assumed it was an eating disorder or whatever else, and that had been part of my history. So I said, yes, I do. And he said, well, I'm going to make something for you. And he began to create this concoction. And he threw in ice, and then he carefully removed the fruit and the seeds of a cantaloupe and threw that in, and he put in a substance that I later learned was called sucanat, sugarcane natural, and made this concoction for me, and then handed it to me, and it was basically cantaloupe in an ice chip form. And I sucked on that, and amazingly, it stayed down. I was shocked, for one thing, that I was getting something inside of me besides boring ice chips with nothing in them. And that was the beginning of a journey back to wellness. And I'll share with you, the next day I was dragged off to a Bernie Siegel event. Dr. Bernie Siegel was the first oncologist, as far as I know, to actually call his patients by name versus a chart number, and really came from a place of heart-centered compassion in his work with patients. And he was really making a name for himself at that point in time, and I had read a couple of his books that had been out, or at least one of them, before we went. And of course they rolled me up to the front of the room, and on the break Dr. Siegel came and spoke to me. And we had an interesting conversation. I was very angry, to say the least, and not very happy to be there, although I was really getting something out of it. I could feel his love and his compassion for humanity. And he asked me a very interesting question. He said, have you ever written a gratitude journal? I said, what in the heck is a gratitude journal? I probably use stronger language. And he said, it's where you write things that you're grateful for. And I looked at him and I said, what have I got to be grateful for? I'm dying, for God's sake. And he said, well, we all have something to be grateful for. And he said, if I were you, I'd take a look at how you got here. Somebody cared enough for you to bring you here. You might want to look at that. And, you're here. That's something to be grateful for. You're still here. As long as you're still above the ground, you've got something to be grateful for. Things could turn around. And he said, remember, what you focus on expands. It might be worth it to start focusing on the things that you're grateful for. So he said, I recommend you go home and start a gratitude journal. And if you can't think of anything more than one thing to write that you're grateful for, just write that 5 times. Just write that 5 times. So after that weekend, I went home and continued with that cantaloupe concoction. I was afraid to try anything else because that was all I knew that had stayed down. And that proceeded for the next almost 2 months before we added anything in, which, by the way, I had outlived my prognosis by 6 weeks at that point in time. But I also started the gratitude journal. And I'll tell you that the first day was not easy. I looked out the window at this overcast, dismal, cold, miserable winter day in Canada. It seemed like they went on for months without sunshine. And I prayed. I said, God, if you want me to write this gratitude journal, show me a sign. For crying out loud, I don't know what to do. And it was almost like within seconds or a minute, the sun shone through the clouds, and only for at most a minute. And I just knew in my heart that was a sign. So I wrote, Dear God, thank you for the sun. Thank you for the sun. Thank you for the sun 5 times. 5 times. And I tell you that at the end of a month, I wrote 137 gratitudes in that journal. And not one of them was the same. They were all different. So what do you think? Maybe I expanded what I had to be grateful for because I'm still here more than 25 years later. It was quite a journey, and I learned a lot. And so I want to share with you some of the things I learned. But let me just address some of the issues that are here, that we're dealing with now. And some of you may have seen this going through the emails that brought you to this webinar, but I want to emphasize this for you now, that 1 in 3 people in developed countries will develop cancer, and it is quickly becoming 1 in 2. And in the U.S., it has been the #1 killer for the past 2 years, superseding heart disease 3 times since 2000. I think 4 times now since 2000. And girls as young as 12, and even in one case 5 years old, are developing breast cancer. What is this about? How could this be happening? And testicular cancer in young men is increasing every year, and it kills. The top 4 cancers that kill are diet and lifestyle related. Prostate cancer, breast cancer, where am I going with this? Lung cancer, just to name a few, are killing people, and they're diet and lifestyle related. That means they're preventable. If people have the facts, the strategies. I've got this thing on my computer that keeps coming up. I'm sorry about that. Whoops-a-daisy. I'll have to just let it go. Sorry about that, folks. That means that they're preventable. The facts, the strategies, the tips and tools are there that people can use to take responsibility for their own health. They just don't know where to get them. But once they get them and start using them, that can change everything for them. And most cancer patients do not die from the cancer. They die from malnutrition and the hideous side effects of the cut, burn, and poison treatments. So here's a couple of questions for you to think about. Really think about this. What if 5 simple keys could start you or someone you love on the path to recovery? I just saw that typo there. Or prevention in the first place. What if 5 simple keys could start you or someone you love on the path to recovery or prevention in the first place? And what if getting and staying healthy was simply knowing a few basic and easy strategies that you could easily incorporate into your normal daily routine? Would you do it? Well, why should you listen to me anyway? Well, apart from having been where you are or where a loved one is, perhaps right now, and given less than 2 weeks in 1989, I've actually found the solution to thriving and not just surviving after cancer. And I'm not going to go through all of this stuff, but I explained to you my 5-year cancer journey. It was not an easy journey, but I'm here today despite all the odds. I'm a thriver who's a survivor. I'm a survivor who's a thriver, and today I'm known as the Vitality Doctor. I'm also a registered dietitian, and I've been in private practice, I work with clinics, and I get to the heart of the matter with my clients. Heart-centered listening and working with clients is what I love the most to do. I also have my PhD in psychology and nutrition, and people say, well, that's an interesting combination. Yeah, because I couldn't get compliance with my nutrition background, so I went back to school and learned how to get into the heart and soul of my patients so I could have a much greater impact. I'm known globally for my speaking, my writing. I've done a lot of radio, and I have 2 radio shows right now, one on Sunday, one on Wednesdays. And I've done a lot of TV in the past as well. Plan to do a lot more. And this is just a quick slide to show you some of the places I've been, some of the government and corporate work I've done, and a few of the cancer-related clients I've worked with. I've also authored a lot of my own books, as well as contributed to at least 15 other books out there. Now, my 5 key system is truly about redefining what's possible for your health and your life so that you can experience more of what life has to offer with unlimited energy, vitality, confidence, and joy, and to be cancer-free at the same time. The 5 keys in a nutshell, and no pun intended here, are what we'll just address quickly. We only have a short time together, so I'll give you as much as I can in the next few minutes, and then I'm going to show you a great way to get a lot more help for free. So here's key number 1, and that is deep, slow, rhythmic breathing. Now, I want to just mention here that in today's world, we are completely out of balance, completely. And it starts with our children. You know, we are not teaching our children that, you know, it's important to take time out and breathe. Most children today are doing breathing just from the neck up. They have never learned how to do deep, rhythmic, abdominal breathing. So they're not getting the oxygen that they need to prevent disease. And we're not allowing our kids to be energetic. I mean, we drug kids today for what we call ADHD and ADD. In my day, that was called energy, and kids would go out and play to release the energy. And because they were out playing and doing sports, they were naturally doing deep, slow, rhythmic breathing in the process of their games, their days. They were doing some pretty fast breathing as well, but they were breathing. They were getting oxygen into their body, which prevented disease. And today, kids aren't getting that. Instead, they're getting drugs which have side effects, and they're not learning how to breathe. And adults are no better. We are not mentors for our children because we're not doing it either. In the hustle bustle of our lives, we don't take time out to just breathe. And a really great practice is to go outside and take your shoes off and put your feet on the earth as you do this deep, slow breathing. Do you know that our ancestors from way back and the indigenous populations of the world, they don't all wear shoes, partly because they maybe don't have them, partly because they don't want to, and they are naturally walking on the ground. And this energy from the earth is going through their body, and they're breathing it in. This would be a practice we should all do, and you only need 5 minutes. Believe me, my strategies are 5-minute strategies, and they work. Try it. Get off your seat and on your feet and go somewhere where there's earth or grass. Take your shoes off and feel that earth under your feet. Okay, so deep, slow, rhythmic breathing. And when you're a simple breath strategy is just to breathe into a count of 4, hold to a count of 4, and release to a count of 4. Very simple strategy. There's many more. In my book, Instant Energy, I cover a lot of different strategies for breathing. So it's really important to learn to breathe. Okay, key number 2, healthy, natural, whole food nutrition. And we want calcium-rich foods and foods that are filled with thousands of phytochemicals. We want real food, natural food, food that looks the way it did when it grew out of the ground or grew off a tree or roamed wild in a field. That's what we want more of. And, you know, I'm an 80-20 person, 80-20 principle person, you know. I mean, if 80% of the time you're eating really excellent whole foods, then you're going to be able to have a treat once in a while. I actually believe in opting for, you know, quality, not quantity. So if you're going to have chocolate, make it dark chocolate. And if you tell me that you don't like dark chocolate, you know what? I come from the UK. I'm a Scots girl from way back in Ochternochty. And we had milk chocolate, you can. And I grew up on milk chocolate and loved it. But you know what? Today, I have acquired a taste because, believe it or not, it takes 90 to 100 days to 90 to 120 days to replace all of your red blood cells. And as you replace them with a new cellular memory. In other words, you can change your appetite over time just by consistently doing something different. And you'll begin to really enjoy dark chocolate. And a really good treat would be dark chocolate covered almonds if you really must have something that's, you know, you've got to have a treat. So that's just throwing that in there for a treat. But the key here is that we really need to get back to whole food. And there's a lot of reasons. The diet that we live on today, and this is a whole presentation on its own, but we live on an acid-based diet. A diet that creates an acid environment within our body and within our cells. And that is an environment in which cancer cells thrive. So what we need to do is create more of an alkaline base where the foods that we eat actually produce an alkaline ash is what it's called. Now, you know, your body balances itself. It goes into homeostasis. But the fact of the matter is that you've got to give it the right tools. And the most important thing is to give it the natural foods. You know, on my Facebook page, facebook.com/Cancer in the Can, I've put up lists all from time to time, quite often, of foods that are alkalizing. In fact, I think a post a couple of days ago was all about that. So, you know, there's all kinds of information out there. You just have to tap into it and get savvy about it. And those are things I teach my patients. It's important for them to know. Then when you know what to do, you can create a healthier base from which to operate. A more alkaline-based diet. And which foods are alkaline? Well, it's simple. Fresh vegetables, fresh fruits overall. And I want to put something out there. People say, but fruit is high in sugar. And I've had this debate on Facebook and, you know, through my email systems with people. You know, people say, oh, you can't eat fruit because it's high in sugar. I agree that we want more vegetables than fruits. My rule with my clients is 7 to 9 servings of fresh raw vegetables every day, and I teach them exactly how to incorporate that into their program. And 3 to 5 servings of fresh fruit every day. And that would comprise of 3 of the more dense fruits, such as, you know, apples, bananas, oranges, peaches, nectarines, that type of thing, and 2 or more of the berry family, you know, the strawberries, raspberries, blueberries, because they're so packed with antioxidants, and they're also low in calories. And of course, cantaloupe and honeydew melon are low in calories, but they're very nutrient dense. And you know, obesity is rampant in our world. So what my clients have found is that they will naturally lose those pounds if they're carrying extra pounds just by reverting to this more holistic diet. And I'm a real believer in substituting. So it's not about eliminating something. You've got to substitute it. So as you add in more healthy food, you'll push out more of the unhealthy food. It's like a replacement process. You replace the foods that are unhealthy in your diet with the foods that are healthy. Now, if you're diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, you can bet I'm not going to give you a lot of time to do that replacement. We're going to just do it right away. But if you're early stage or you want to prevent, which is even better, or you're the caregiver who doesn't want to get sick, then a slower replacement process can happen. But it's critical that we start replacing those acid-based forming foods with alkaline-based forming foods, right? Alkaline ash forming foods. So that's the whole process of getting the right kinds of foods in. And by the way, you need a lot of water. Not too much water, but a lot of water. You do need approximately, if we're going to look at your weight in pounds, and you're going to have to translate this for yourself if you're kilogram based, but it's basically, the rule of thumb is half your body weight in ounces. So the average person, say that's, 130 pounds, and I'm not sure what that is in kilograms, but that would be about 65 ounces or 8 glasses of water. And so you can kind of figure it out from that. Now, if you're a person who's very athletic and you're very active and you're sweating a lot, you might want to include more water in your diet. But remember, there's also something called hyponatremia when you have too much water. So be careful. You don't, just because water is really healthy for you, the rule of thumb is drink when you're thirsty. And I don't necessarily say wait till you're thirsty, but basically that's the rule of thumb now, the guidelines. And I talked about that, by the way, on my radio show this past Sunday, the Dr. Marilyn Joyce show. So the key here is back to whole foods, 80-20 principle. When I work with my patients who are really fighting for their life, we go for 95%, 90-95%, and 5% of the other foods. So it's really, and it's about learning, as I said, quality, not quantity. So learning what kinds of things can you replace those unhealthy foods with. And we mentioned dark chocolate. One of my favorite health bars is a bar called Raw Revolution. My clients love it. It's reasonably priced. I think it's available in other parts of the world, but don't quote me on it. But it's finding whole food raw bars, things like that that are healthy. If you're going to have something as a treat, make it a healthy treat. Okay, next step. The next step is regular cell regenerating exercise. And what we have to think about here is developing muscles that will create, that then can create and support strong bones. So many people take all kinds of calcium supplements, or they get a drug, which that blows me away, to build their bones up, when the simplest strategy possible is to get exercise. So giving you the example of my experience way back when I was in that wheelchair. How did I get out of it? Well, I didn't just get out of the wheelchair and start walking. We had to hire a physiotherapist to exercise my body, to build some muscles up slowly and gradually. And it was a process. I mean, even at the end of a year and 6 months on my feet, I ran a mile in 30 minutes. And that's no record. Believe me, that's no world record. Well, it might be for the longest time running to run a mile. But the fact of the matter was, for me, that let me know that I was on my way to recovery, to being fully mended, so to speak. But the point is that getting out, getting on your feet and moving is critical. You need muscles, because muscles transport calcium from the foods you eat that are high in calcium. And we're not talking dairy here. We're talking vegetables that are high in calcium. We're talking legumes, beans, peas, lentils, split peas. Those are really nutrient-dense, calcium-dense foods. Tofu, make it GMO-free organic tofu, of course, but tofu, things like that are really great sources of calcium. And what most people don't understand is that if you're using dairy products, which are animal protein, to boost your calcium, you've got to remember that actually animal protein leaches the calcium out of your bones in order to buffer the acid that's produced in your body from consuming the animal products. So it's not as bioavailable, not nearly as bioavailable as it would be from the green vegetables such as broccoli or spinach or collard greens or Swiss chard. And then the legumes, of course, as I said. Those are great sources. Black-eyed peas are really great sources, by the way, of calcium. So it's a really great source. So there you have some really good sources, but you want to get your calcium from food, because when you start taking excessive amounts of calcium, like megadoses, what happens is, especially if you have no muscles to transport that calcium into your bones, or very little muscle, then what happens is that gets shunted to your joints, and then you seem to have arthritis, when really it's just arthritic-like symptoms from the calcium buildup in your joints. I could spend, again, a whole session just on that alone as well. But the most important thing is to understand that. So you need exercise. Now, what kinds of exercises are great? I love rebound. It's been proven by NASA that 5 to 7 minutes of rebounding on a mini trampoline is equivalent to 35 to 40 minutes of jogging, slow jogging, or walking, fast walking. I personally love walking, so I walk about 35 to 45 to sometimes 55 or 60 minutes a day. I walk approximately 4 to 5 miles a day, sometimes a little less, but usually that's what I aim for. Now, that's me. If you don't want to do that, you don't have to. It's been proven that just 20 minutes of walking a day will reduce the onset of cancer and heart disease by up to 50%. And I've also talked about that on my radio show. So, you know, those are things that you need to be aware of. Just get off your seat and on your feet and do something, even if it's just to run up and down stairs if you have stairs in your home. Run up and down your stairs a few times. I purposefully get off my feet, get off my seat and on my feet and run up and down the stairs in my house several times when I need a quick pick-me-up. And if I don't do that, I go and rebound. You know, I get on the rebounder and bounce for a few minutes. You know, 5 minutes, could be even just 2 minutes, and it makes a huge shift. This will also enhance your energy level because you're going to be uptaking more oxygen, and you're going to be developing those bones, those muscles, so that you can develop strong bones. Very important. And you know, there's a saying: the exercise for you is the exercise you'll do. If you can afford a good trainer, then I recommend that because they know what might be best for your specific body type. If you can't, just do something. Just make sure you do something. Dance, put on some music, and you know, gyrate your body. Make it happen. Get your body moving. Okay, the key number 4 is daily restorative relaxation. And I want you to really think about this because this is time out for nervous system regeneration, tension release, mental clarity, and inner peace and calm. And you know what? Of all the keys with my clients, this one is the one that most of them don't do. When we run through the 5 keys on our sessions that we have, we go through what they've actually done, what they've achieved, and most of them focus way too much energy just on the food part, and that's very important. It is a foundation. But they focus no attention on the time out. And if you don't do this, your body can't heal. It needs that time out. And I would add some visualization in there. If you're dealing with cancer, you want to really start to visualize your body releasing those cancer cells. You know, one of the strategies, if you can't get yourself to take time out any other way, go take a shower. Go take a 5 to 10 minute shower and stand under that shower and visualize, if you're diagnosed with cancer, visualize the cancer cells just being washed off your body and out of your body and down the drain. Very simple process, but it works like magic. It's just, I don't like using that word magic too much, but I really, really mean it. So it's very critical to think about getting that time out into your day. And I recommend doing it whenever you feel yourself really strung out. Just put your feet up. If you don't do the shower thing, put your feet up, put on some relaxing music, set a timer for 5 minutes, and breathe. And you can incorporate the breathing and the time out into one experience. Sounds good, doesn't it? And it's so simple. You set your timer for 5 minutes. When it goes off, you're done. And you will be renewed, and you will get a lot more done in your day when you do this throughout the day. And of course, we want to be sure that you also sleep every night. And I'm not good at doing that myself, so it's something I teach myself. I actually force myself to aim for at least 5 to 6 hours. I can get by on less, but I know that 5 to 7 hours is ideal for me, and I really recommend that you think about how to incorporate more sleep into your life as well. And Dave's a pro at that one too, so he can give you lots of guidelines on how to do that. And where's my number 5? There it is. And number 5 is optimistic thinking and meditation, and this includes an attitude of gratitude. You know, I learned these 5 keys in India way back in 1970-71, and I utilized them for several years. And then I got caught up in the hustle bustle of life and my administrative dietetic job, and I forgot them. Do you know that the most important thing I do now is number 5? All the other things are just a part of my life. I have to think about number 5 sometimes. I know a lot of us do. But when I find myself going on that downward spiral of life is hard and things aren't working the way I want, and why is this such a problem? And have you ever had one of those days? Boy, I'll tell you, I had one of those days yesterday. And what I did was, apart from taking 5 minutes out to just unwind, I pulled out my gratitude journal and I wrote in there 5 gratitudes. And one of them at the top of the list was, thank you, God, for Dave giving me the opportunity to provide this webinar for you today, because this is really my heart, to provide tools that you can use. And one of them I strongly urge you to do is to write a gratitude journal, and don't write it on the computer. I mean, that's something you can do if you want, but there's something about, you know, the mind to the arm to the fingers to the paper through a pen or a pencil. Write them down in a journal. And you know, the wonderful thing about having them in a journal is that you can go back and read that on days when you're not feeling so optimistic. You can read the things that you're grateful for. I have about 300 gratitudes in a list that I've compiled over the last 6 or 7 months that I go back, and when I'm really, you know, going through, oh my gosh, how am I going to do all this? What's happening with today? Why is the computer not working? I just read them. And you know, it's amazing. I'll come back to my computer and it's working. So there's something about releasing that happens when you write in the gratitude journal. And again, what you focus on expands. And this leads to self-acceptance. And we have to be very cognizant of the power of our words. When you say I can't, you've already limited yourself. When you say I can, you've opened up all kinds of possibilities. So it's really about learning to utilize more words more effectively. Again, those are a lot of the things that I cover with my patients and my clients. And I could do a whole seminar on this alone as well, to be quite honest. But that gives you a good summary. One of my cancer patients who is a survivor who's a thriver, I wanted to share this with you because we're in contact a fair amount, and what she said was, working with Dr. Marilyn has taught me how to be joyous as I walk my journey. I've always found that what she says is very impactful because it's from her heart, it's real, and it's from her experience. The program was totally customized to me. I felt personally seen, I felt heard, I felt that I have someone in my corner. She is so full of compassion. She's not just doing a job. Most people wait until they have a serious illness to seek help. It's unfortunate because we have people like Dr. Marilyn who are there to help us prevent the disease in the first place. But for those who already have health challenges, Dr. Marilyn should be the first call they make. Thank you so much, Judy. I really enjoy working with you, and this was an honor to receive. The truth is, most of us need a lot more help, right? Knowing the keys is just not enough. So imagine overcoming cancer, beating the odds, and celebrating your new, vibrantly alive, completely healed body, and becoming your healthiest self possible, faster, easier, with less effort and stress, and with more relaxed fun and joy than you ever dreamed possible. Are you interested? Super. Then I have a new program which is 100% free. It's going to be launched in September, and it's the Kick Cancer in the Can Expert Interview Series. And this is just for you. This is going to be, in my mind, my legacy to the planet. At the Kick Cancer in the Can Expert Interview Series, you're going to receive urgent information and education in just 1 hour a week. And at the Kick Cancer in the Can series, you're going to receive the most timely information, education, tips, tools, strategies, recipes, resources, and hidden secrets, along with access to the top healthcare professionals in the cancer world, and so much more. So the truth is, we all need more help. And as I said, the keys, the 5 keys are excellent, but they're just not enough, I've discovered. So remember that special gift I told you about at the beginning? It's actually 2 gifts, by the way, that I'm giving you to jumpstart you on your journey back to the best health ever. But there's one little catch. You just have to head over now to http://bit.ly/KCITC, that's the capital letters for Kick Cancer in the Can, capital E on expert, capital S on series. And that, go there, register for the new Kick Cancer in the Can expert interview series, and the gifts are yours immediately. I really want you to jump on this. These calls are free. There'll be a 48-hour replay period as well, so if you miss the calls, you will get access to the interviews for 48 hours afterwards. You don't want to miss this. These are going to be top speakers and top scientists, top researchers from around the world. And if you need some help along the way, I do have my book, Instant Energy, that you can actually get in a digital format. Same kind of thing with the bit.ly, and then /Instant Energy Digital, a capital I, a capital E, and a capital V on the 3 words. And you'll get my pyramid of energy as well. And here's my contact information. I want to let you know about something new that you might want to check out. It's 5 to 10 minutes every week, and it's also a bit.ly account, but it's Kick Cancer in the Can quick tip, weekly quick tips. And that weekly quick tips, by the way, if you go to iTunes, to the podcast section at the store, the podcast is free. You just put in Kick Cancer in the Can, and you'll have access to, once you subscribe, you'll have access to the 3 that are posted so far. There'll be a 4th one posted tomorrow, and every week there's a new podcast, only 5 to 10 minutes, really great quick tips. So I wanted to alert you to that because it's one of my most exciting things, and it goes hand in hand with the Kick Cancer in the Can expert interview series. And again, I'll take you back to that page so that you can see the bit.ly account that you go to for that. So it's http://bit.ly/capital capital C, capital I, capital T, capital C, capital E, small XPERT, capital S, small ERIES. For anybody who's listening on the phone and not watching the webinar, I wanted to make sure that you knew how to get into that.
And also, Marilyn, I put the link into the chat box, so everyone, go to the chat box, or question box, it probably says on your computer, and it will have the link there. So you can just literally click the link in your question or chat box and go directly to the page. And just make sure you go there, put in your name and email, and click submit, and you're automatically on Marilyn's notifications list.
Thank you, Dave. I appreciate that.
So great stuff, and as ever, you never fail to deliver. Not only do you deliver such a touching story and lots of comments coming in, as you were telling it, and especially, it was good again, the emotion came out of you because, at the end of the day, it's an incredible story that you have and a really inspiring one, and people were very touched by that, which is not surprising. And as always, great information as always, and you're just such a fountain of knowledge, and it's come from your own experience, plus you've dedicated your whole life to finding the strategies that work, that will impact people's lives generally, but also obviously in the fight against cancer, which is an incredible fight these days with the statistic that you shared with us. So guys, any questions you have, start typing them in now. We'll do a bit of Q&A, and we'll just see what we need to answer. So yes, a touching story. Let me see, what's the question here? Okay, question from Christine. Does Dr. Marilyn Joyce recommend a vegan or vegetarian diet or less or no meat?
Great question. Thank you for that. I definitely encourage a more plant-based diet, and I like to meet my clients where they're at, meet my patients where they're at. You have to understand, a lot of people, when they come to see me as a first-time patient, they have been probably a pretty heavy meat eater, right? The sad American diet, and it's not just in America. Lots of meat, white potatoes, gravy, not very many greens, definitely not organic. And so it's a whole education process. So I can't expect someone to just jump ship from what they're used to. So what we do is we look at how to change the form that what they're eating is in. So for example, if they're a heavy meat eater, we talk about eating grass-fed versus grain-fed beef. I'm not a beef eater. I haven't eaten beef since I was 14 or 15 years old. I can't remember. It was so long ago. But the fact of the matter is that, you know, I personally, I am vegan plus fish. I found that for my body, I just, and when I say that, it might be once a month at most that I have fish. But it's something that is an option. If I go out with friends, I'll get some wild salmon, or if I go to eat dinner with friends, they know that I don't eat beef, pork, lamb, or any of that stuff at all. So they'll have some wild fish. I've got my friends well trained, by the way. But at home, if you were to open my refrigerator, it's all vegan. I mean, I live on legumes and wild rice and brown rice and, you know, the mixed rices and quinoa. Those would be my grains, and then of course, you know, the quinoa is a complete protein, so that's one of the reasons I love it so much. It's loaded with nutrition and it's complete protein. And so, wow, there's lots of people, excuse my phone, I don't know how to turn that sound off. So lots of people going in and getting the free gift. So anyway, long and short of it is, though, that the vegan program is really the direction I aim for with my patients, and to try to get them down to as little meat as possible. Now, I've got to tell you, when someone's been eating meat for their entire life and they're 65 years of age, it's a really tough change for them unless they're really, really committed to that change. And so we do it gradually, and if and when they stop, they stop. But we, like I said, we substitute in the meantime, and we try to get them doing more of the, you know, more fish for the omega-3 fatty acids. And of course, I talk about the vegetarian forms of the omega-3s, you know, such as the chia seeds and the flax seeds, golden flax seeds. And you want to make sure they're organic, by the way, and things like that. You know, we look at how to incorporate more of that. So, you know, that would be my take on it. Yes, I do think vegan is good, is the perfect diet overall. Again, it's meeting people where they're at. Vegetarian, you know, you have to be very careful with a vegetarian, quote unquote, vegetarian diet, because a lot of times what people will do is they'll start eating a lot of cheese and a lot of eggs. Now, you know, free-range, organic, fertilized eggs are a fine addition to your diet, and I do not believe in eating the whites and not the yolks. God made that whole egg, and I recommend having the whole egg. Okay, so if you're going to eat an egg, make sure it's organic, free-range, fertilized, and don't overdo anything, everything in moderation. But what happens is, as I said, people start eating a lot of the eggs and the cheese for their protein, and we all know the detriments of having too much of the dairy products. I talked about one of them earlier with respect to the calcium issue and the need to buffer the production of acid that occurs when you eat animal proteins, including dairy. There's the high fat level. You know, there's just too many reasons not to include the vegetarian per se. Aim more for a vegan, and perhaps add in fish if you feel the need for animal protein. That would be the animal protein that I would recommend. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, no, great answer. And you know, just to throw in from my perspective, you know, as Marilyn knows, like I'm now, it's coming up to what, 19 months now a vegan, and it was like a 7-year process moving towards that. Because the more I learned about it, the more I researched it, the more I saw people like, say, my wife and son who were 100% vegans at the time, the more I saw them thriving, the more it made sense to me, and it was something I gradually did, and gradually, you know, started cutting things out, like you said, in terms of the meats, and thinking about the just fish and cutting out the dairy. And now I'm 19 months into being vegan, and I've never felt better. You know, and my clients who I've moved in that direction, I think that's an important point Marilyn makes, that for most people, it's the key is to start moving that direction. For some people, they can make drastic changes, but reality for most people is, if they make a drastic change, they'll probably fall off the wagon. Whereas if you do it gradually and just make gradual changes, you will stick at it for life, which is what I have done, and I've never felt better. So just identify areas where you can make improvements. Definitely like the meat and dairy are the prime ones to really start cutting down and aiming towards eliminating. But definitely the way to go. And that's not something I would have said 7 or 8 years ago when I was guzzling meat and dairy like it was going out of fashion. So,
and Dave, I want to add something there too about the chicken, because people assume chicken is good. And the truth of the matter is that chicken is one of the most hormone injected, antibiotic injected of all the animal meats out there. So most people aren't aware of that, and they think that they should, you know, it must be okay to have chicken. I'd be very careful about chicken, especially after what happened a few years ago when I'm trying to remember which company it was. There was a particular chicken company that said that they, and it's probably better that I don't mention names, but they were sued because what they were telling people was that they had two different forms, the one form for Costco and the other form for the whole food markets, and it turned out it was the same chicken with hormones and antibiotics. So, you know, that did bring awareness up for people, but I think to err on the side of caution is always the best. I don't recommend having chicken.
definitely. And that was a natural transition I made, like from red meats to white meats. But again, the more I researched it then, the more like what Marilyn is saying, that it actually isn't as good as it's, you know, portrayed. You know, this is where it's key for everyone to be open-minded. It's like the fact you're even on this webinar shows you are, and you're looking for alternative methods. But keep open-minded and keep looking for information, and keep looking to see what makes sense to you. I've just seen here a question. Patrick here is actually from Limerick, where I'm living. He's just saying he has been cutting down on meat. Yeah, he's been making some great adjustments to his nutrition plan the last couple of months. He's just asking, is cod or haddock okay?
Cod or haddock? Was that the question?
Yeah, cod, haddock, or, you know, what would be best fish, I suppose, if you're
Okay.
going to fish.
Well, you know, cod and haddock are deep water fish. You have to be careful about the time of year because haddock does tend, and so does cod, tend to get a lot of worms. So you have to be really careful about the time of year, and you know the cooler time of year is when it's less likely to happen. When the waters get warmer, that's when it's more likely to result in the worms. But cod, haddock, halibut, those are all deep water fish that are, as long as they're wild, then they're a good source of omega-3 fatty acids as well. And then, of course, wild salmon, Pacific, not Atlantic. Atlantic isn't wild. Wild Pacific salmon and also ahi tuna, those are deep water fish as well. You know, I go through a whole list of these with my patients because I want them to know which ones are the highest in omega-3s if they're going to eat fish. And I will tell you that the recommendation overall in the cancer world has been about 2 servings of fish a week. And we're not talking a big plate of fish. You know, that's the big mistake that most of us make in the developed countries, is we think that the meat has to take up most of the plate and then a little bit of room for the veggies. No, the meat should, if you're going to have fish, which is a meat, if you're going to have it, you want it to only take up at most a quarter size on a quarter part of the plate, at most. It should not be any larger than the deck of cards, the size of a deck of cards. And that's large in my mind. Even less is better.
Great stuff.
So I hope that answers that question.
Great stuff. Yeah, Patrick just saying great, thanks very much.
Yeah, Patrick just saying great, thanks very much.
Okay. I just hear a bit of an echo coming. What I'm going to do, if anyone has any other questions, just start typing them into the question box. I'm just going to make myself presenter again just for a minute. Just want to announce something. So any other questions from Marilyn, just start typing them in. Okay, let me see here. Okay, so just to quickly let you know, and we'll come back to any questions in just a minute. Marilyn, I'm just going to mute you there for a second, because for some reason it's swing. Let me just mute you there for just a second while I go through this. Yeah, I think that should be okay now. Let me just see the same questions. Okay, perfect. All right, guys, just for a minute here, and we go back to Marilyn again. Just to let you know, in October 4th to the 6th, it's Formula for Success Live. This is my 3-day event that we had in March. It's a hugely successful event, and many of the attendees are with Dr. Marilyn again in this October as well, because again, she's, you know, such an amazing, inspirational person. And just let you know, an early bird offer is to attend. If you want to attend at the venue, it's only €97. To book early bird, which ends soon. And early bird, the full price actually $97. So you're getting a €100 discount, which in dollars is probably about 130. This is the link you go to. Okay, so I'll be showing that link again in a second. So it's not something to attend at the venue, which is Dublin, but for many of you who live all over the world, because we have people on from all over the world, and you know our line's been absolutely jammed, and many people haven't actually been able to get on. So it's going to be Ben this evening. that we actually have a live stream option. Live stream is normally $97 full price, early bird only $27. If you deal with euros, you're talking about 18, 19 euros, very little. So this is the link, this one. So whether you want to come to the event at the venue, there's a link, or go and attend via live stream, here's the link for that. So definitely an event you want to attend, you don't want to miss out. We have incredible speakers. I do a lot of the presentations myself as well. Dr. Marilyn Joyce will be involved, and some other top experts from around the world. So you can see the discounts are pretty massive, but we want to make it worth it if you want to book in advance. So €97, which is about $120 or so, or $27 to us. And it just goes to those links if you want to get on. Okay, I'm just going to bring back on Dr. Marilyn Joyce. Just get back onto it.
Unmuted.
Okay, just see is there an echo again? If there is, I'll just say myself. How's that sounding this time?
I'm here.
I'm here. Yeah, I'm hearing myself come back. So what I do, Marilyn, if you want to add any final thoughts or anything, speak away. I'll just keep myself muted.
Okay. One of the things I had not talked about that comes up a lot with my patients these days is something called EMFs, and that's electromagnetic frequencies. And, that's everywhere around us. That's, all the wireless phones, computers, iPads, all those things, as well as the smart meters that are being put up everywhere for electricity and I think for other things too. But the point of the matter is that we have them all around us. And if you have these, you might want to take some precautions to protect yourself, because there seems to be an indication of increased cancer and potentially pancreatic cancer, which is on the rise, by the way, with those who are subjected to these frequencies on, right next to their heads, for example, on their porches or lanais or, balconies, whatever, where they might have one of those meters, those smart meters. But the fact is that we're surrounded by them all the time, so it's a really good idea to make sure you protect yourself. And that's there are some little pads you can put on your phone if you want to make sure it's a good one. I'll be talking about that on my future Wednesday night podcasts, those 5 to 10 minute presentations, shows. So I will be talking about that down the road. But the key thing is to protect yourself. And one of the ways that you can protect yourself is that way that I mentioned earlier in the presentation, which is to actually go out on the grass, take your shoes off. This won't work with shoes on, and just walk around grass or earth, not wood. Wood is not a conductor. And so therefore you will not actually ground yourself as well. There are grounding packages that you can times a day and find some grass somewhere and walk on the earth. That's the ideal thing to do, and that will help to ground you and protect you. So I just wanted to throw that out there. The other thing, the other thing I mentioned was about us being completely out of balance. And truly, the most important thing that I work on with my patients is to get them in balance, because when they're in balance, their body can fight off a lot of problems. And a conversation I had with a client yesterday, which was very powerful, was that it reminded me of something I used to say all the time, and that is to ask yourself, are you moving towards wellness or away from illness? You could use that with anything. I talk about that in my book, Instant Energy. But it's what are you doing? Where is your focus? Remember, what you focus on expands. So if you're focused on moving away from the illness, what are you focused on? You're focused on the illness. But if you're focused on moving towards health, what are you focused on? You're focused on health. So what you're going to have is an expansion of that. There's no focus on the cancer cells. The only time that you might want to focus on the cancer cells would be when you get in the shower and you imagine yourself, visualize yourself, washing those cancer cells down the drain. That might be the one time you might think about them. But other than that, it's better to not be focused on that. Be focused on what's healthy, what's about wellness, that kind of direction. And I think that's really, those would be my key points. Oops, there's definitely an echo.
Yeah, it's just coming in now at the end for some reason. Marilyn, I just want to thank you so much for your time. You've been here now for an hour and 15 minutes, and the time's valuable. It's been fantastic to have you on once again. Still so many people on who have benefited from it. So, thank you for your time, and look forward to having you on again in the future. I'm sure you will be. And just keep up the amazing work that you're doing.
Thank you, Dave.
I
really enjoyed this opportunity.
Great stuff. Thanks a lot, Marilyn.
Thank you.
And to everybody, thank you for being on again. You've invested your time and you've shown that you're serious about making changes in your life. Make sure you implement the information that Marilyn shared with you, but also please share that information. That's really important that you get to hear this. Also, you're going to get an email tomorrow with access to recording, so you can watch it again. Also, again, share that recording with others. I hope to see you again with the Form for Success webinar every Tuesday at the exact same time. Put it in your diary, get on it, and appreciate if you spread the word as well. It's 100% free, and as you can see, we provide incredible speakers, incredible content, and life-changing information. This is Dave Sheahan from Formula for Success. Looking forward to hearing about your success in the near future. Have a fantastic week.